looking to do this weekly for a long time, but the reality is there's been times that I've gone months. So it's a little strange that here I am recording another one literally the day after I just recorded some other ones. So in case you aren't familiar with this, because I've said this in the last couple of episodes, I've been writing some really amazing articles on Substack and Medium, and they're so like potent for me. I thought to myself, Spirit basically said, you need to record these as podcasts as well. Like your audience, the folks that are listening to you need to hear these. Because the reality is some of us like to listen and some of us like to read. And I'm the reader, but most of the folks that I'm surrounded with are the listeners. So yeah, I'm doing this for all of you out there that have told me you'd prefer to listen versus read. So this next article is titled, Recovery Didn't Give Me Back My Life, It Gave Me Back My Magic. You know, I don't have a really clear memory of who I was before addiction, right? Uh, I started drinking when I was 8 years old. I know that's wild to think, that's wild to, even imagine, but I did. At first, it was just sips. My father, who is an alcoholic, would leave half finished drinks around the house, in the living room, in the family room. And I would sneak those, and it wasn't daily, it wasn't even weekly, but it planted something in me. This silence, this forgetting, but even this like hunger. And I would probably describe it as a hunger to numb. And if I really trace it all the way back, and I was even thinking about this yesterday, I'd say I was probably still myself in my early childhood. And I lost myself by early adolescence. I recall this photo of me. I was probably around the age of 6 years old, and I'm standing on this log, or maybe it's like a parking block or something, and my arms are flung wide back, and the wind is blowing through my hair, and I think, a little pink jacket on, and my little belly is out, and it was just, it was amazing. It was this beautiful, beautiful representation of like the joy of childhood. And back then, I loved to create. I would draw, I would read, I would get lost in my thoughts. I believed in the magic of being alive and being present, even if I didn't recognize it as that as a child. But somehow, somewhere between the trauma at home, right, all the traumatic events that I experienced in my home life, the shame of being too strange, and the pressure to conform, 13 years of Catholic schooling, that presence began to dim. My addiction wasn't just alcohol over the years, right? I chased sex and love often, desperately trying to feel wanted and needed. And then came workaholism, control, all of these ways to numb, trying to prove I was okay by being everything for everyone else. And that beautiful girl on the log, the one who knew how to play, how to channel wonder, how to create worlds within her own imagination, she got buried. There was a moment when I could feel I let it go. Or maybe more accurately described, I felt it be ripped away. I was in the car riding with my ex-husband. This is a man that I had known since I was 19, but I didn't start dating until I was 30. I must have believed that somewhere deep down he knew who I was, right? He'd known me for so long. That he knew I was a witch, that he knew I had psychic gifts, that my path was spiritual in ways that I hadn't fully explained, maybe because I didn't even understand. But we were driving this long road trip down to South Carolina. And I opened up and I told him about my magic. and I mentioned a spell. I shared something that was really sacred to me, and at that point had been pretty private. It was my husband. He laughed. He mocked it. He mocked me. And in that moment, I felt horror. I felt shame. I felt grief. I felt rage. I was angry. I'd shared something that was so intimate to me and it was thrown back in my face. It wasn't the only time he'd done that. The marriage was riddled with emotional abuse. But that was the moment that I knew my magic had gone dormant. And it stayed that way for almost 8 years. Almost 8 years. When I got sober, I didn't expect to feel powerful. I really just wanted to survive. I'd watched my father almost pass. I watched my cousin pass away from alcoholism. I wanted to live. But around 3.5 months in, right after my first sober Christmas, I started to notice something. I was attending meetings and I was watching all these old timers speak, and they had something, right? Not all of them were religious per se, but there was this spark, this spirit, a light in them that I craved. It had me start to wonder and become curious, right? Something that I was when I was little. And I asked myself, what is my spiritual path? And in the silence, I heard, you're a witch. It was in that week that I dug out my tarot cards and I started pulling cards for myself every day. And then I started to wonder, how can I do this with connection? What is my way of going to church, right? Because that's what church is, right? This opportunity for us to connect with people, other people that believe similar to us. So it was January 20th of 2020, and I went live on Facebook. Wild, right? I started to offer free tarot card readings. I started to study again. I started to remember all of these things that I had started to explore, look up, and engross myself with years before. And it wasn't all sudden, it wasn't all at once, but over a few weeks, I felt myself come home. This wasn't about getting my life back. It was about getting my soul back, my truth, my gifts, my magic. There's this really dominant belief in recovery circles that sobriety gives you your life back. And I believe in some ways that's true. But for us witches, especially those of us that are queer, neurodivergent, or just mystically wired, recovery doesn't just restore, it resurrects. It doesn't give us back what we had, it gives us back what we are, what we've buried, what we've lost, what we've forgotten for lifetimes. Witchcraft infused recovery isn't just about abstinence. It's about sovereignty. It's about becoming accountable for the beautiful life you were born to create, a life shaped by intuition, ritual, healing, and spiritual service, not through sacrifice, but through boundaries and sacred respect. If you're still hiding, I see you. I know it's scary. I know the world still ridicules us and tries to shame us and tries to lump us in with the demonic or the delusional or the Satan worshipers. Oh, God. But hiding costs you more than you're meant to pay. When you stay hidden and you betray your own soul, you risk never discovering the truth of who you really are. For me, staying hidden kept me sick. I truly believe I wouldn't have made it through these past 6 years without fully embracing the path of the witch. I really don't. I was never forced to choose between traditional recovery and my path, but my body told me that something was off. I remember once in a meeting I'd shared about my higher powers, and I've talked about this one before. And a fellow member pulled me aside and asked if I had meant it, right? It wasn't this like overt shaming, but it was enough that it caused me to stay quieter after that. It's strange to even say this to you, but I'm not starting a religious organization just for validation. I'm starting it because our recovery is not clinical. It's sacred and it's spiritual. It involves rites and rituals and spiritual tools and ancestral work and psychic gifts. Just like the church itself performs sacraments, we perform spells. And just like the temple honors holy days, we honor the wheel of the year. This is our path to healing, to remembering who we're meant to be. And it deserves the same protection as every other spiritual-based organization out there. In a purely clinical program, I don't think I would ever have accepted my psychic gifts. I wouldn't have trusted my ability to hear, see, know, or feel the energy the way that I do now. These gifts aren't just a part of me, they are my medicine. I once told a client the only difference between your gifts and mine is that I have to trust mine to stay sober. These abilities aren't separate from my recovery, they are my recovery. They've helped me and they've helped hundreds, even thousands of other people. That's not therapy, that's divinity. The metaphor in all of this that has continued to rise again and again for me is the metaphor of the phoenix. Sometimes to become who you were meant to be, you have to burn down who you were pretending to be. I was pretending to be an excellent corporate leader in a large organization that loved to work and sought recognition through awards and monetary means. Sometimes you have to let the flames do their work so that you can rise. Not as a replica of your old life, but as something entirely reborn. If you've forgotten your magic, I promise that it has not forgotten you. If you've buried your power to stay safe, I understand. But your soul came here to reclaim it. This isn't just about sobriety. This is not just about letting go of what once tried to destroy us. This is about the re-enchantment. This is about your resurrection. This, my dear friends, is your invitation. I hope you decide to check everything out that I'm building and come join me. Until next time, my dear friends, much love from me to all you.